"Step back," said the guard. Rain freckles were already darkening the marble when the words cut the hushed crowd. SPC Daniel Reeve tracked the breach without turning his head, thumb tapping the rifle's sling clip once, twice. Then the man retreated behind the velvet rope. The air smelled like metal and ozone. Thunder pressed low, a warning that rode the Potomac up to the hill of white headstones. They say storms test what we are when ceremony meets chaos. Stay with me, because what you're about to see isn't pageantry, it's promise. And if you honor stories like this, of duty, of sacrifice, subscribe now so you don't miss the next watch on this sacred ground. Boots struck stone, a steady metronome. 21 measured steps along the black mat. Halt, turn, pause. Reeve's breath shaped itself into the rhythm, into the ritual older than his heartbeat. Across the plaza, SSG Elijah Brooks stood like a post carved from the same marble. Lean, 5'11", eyes never leaving the line, voice measured when he chose to use it, though silence did most of his speaking. CPT Mara Vance, a notebook under her arm, scanned the visitors with the look of someone who knew Section 60 by heart. SGT Will Trent waited off axis, jaw working a peppermint, relief guard in case weather turned the mat to a mirror. Lightning rummaged behind the clouds. Flags snapped. Reeve's rifle gleamed briefly, a clean streak of light sliding the barrel as he pivoted. The sky growled. "Ceremony continues," Brooks had said before Reeve took the mat. "Respect does not check the weather." The first fat drops arrived as a murmur crossed the caps and cameras. A boy pointed at the storm. A woman whispered, "We should go." And the rope line shuddered as people squeezed for better angles. Hal Cooper, gold cufflink catching even the gray light, smiled with one corner of his mouth, dismissive. "This is ridiculous," he stage whispered to his companion. "They should shut it down." The wind came in a cold sheet. The white of the tomb went ghostly against the green slope, mist rising. The graves blurred to pale ribs under rain. Reeve's sleeve darkened, the wool tightening on his forearm. He did not break cadence. 21 steps. Turn. Pause. A drop dangled from his brim until it fell down the bridge of his nose, and then another formed, and another. The sling clip kissed his thumb, and he stilled it. "Sir," Vance said, moving up the line to where Cooper leaned too close, "for your safety, please keep behind the rope." Cooper glanced at her notebook and smirked. "What's the safety in standing in a thunderstorm with a rifle anyway? Theater." Brooks moved with a quiet precision that made space appear where he chose. He didn't look at Cooper. He didn't have to. "Eyes on the line," he said, not to Cooper, not to anyone in particular, and somehow to all. His tone carried weight like a folded flag. Thunder rolled across the marble and down the hillside. The smell sharpened, ozone and polished brass. Reeve's boot met the mat's edge. He placed his heel and toe exactly, the mat slick now, black with rain. He felt the rifle's cold bite in his palm and the rough edge of the rope line at his peripheral. The tomb's inscription, "Here rests in honored glory." An American soldier, known but to God, lifted pale through the downpour. He heard his drill sergeant's ghost in the thunder. "You are not guarding a box. You are guarding the promise." Wind rose, tugging at sleeves, tearing at umbrellas. Cameras clicked and then stuttered as people fumbled. Somewhere plastic cracked. The rope bowed, its velvet slick to the touch of many hands trying to anchor themselves to a rule. Vance stepped left, clearing a lane, jaw set. Trent shifted his weight near the steps, peppermint scent cutting through the wet earth smell. Ready. Cooper raised his voice over the squall. "There's no one even in there. It's symbolic, isn't it? What's the point of risking—" Reeve halted. The world narrowed to the sound of his own breath in the tomb's white silence. He executed the rifle inspection under rain, swift, precise, the chrome landing plate flashing like a small, stubborn star. The crowd, raucous seconds ago, fell into that straining quiet only storms and funerals produce. His eyes never left the line. A bolt forked the sky beyond the rose, so bright it burned color from the world. The crack chased it a heartbeat later, a whip of sound that thudded the chest. Umbrellas tilted, someone yelped, a stroller wheel squealed. Reeve did not blink. The rifle descended in his practiced arc, the sling clip kissed by his thumb. Brooks watched him the way a man watches a fuse, measuring the length by the light. The radio on Brooks's shoulder hissed with rain and voice, a metallic mosquito. Vance heard it too, turned a fraction. Trent's eyes flicked over. Brooks didn't touch the handset. He spoke low, for Reeve alone, for the tomb alone. "Maintain," Cooper scoffed, but softer now, the storm stealing his bravado. "Soldiers as statues," he said. "What heroism is that?" Reeve's jaw tightened, rain beating his lip before sliding off like surrendered words. He resumed. 21. The line between the living and the dead ran down the middle of his mat, as real beneath his boots as the groove time had pressed into it. He walked it smooth, thunder again, farther, then closer, then layered. The wind veered, flag snapping hard enough to vibrate the pole. The scent of the next strike was already in the air, a metallic penny on the tongue. A child began to cry. The mother shushed, the sound fraying. Vance's notebook stayed under her arm, unreadable, names safe against the wet. Trent shifted once more. Peppermint cracked between his molars. Lightning tore the sky, closer, so close the hair on wrists rose. It struck a stand of wet stone beyond the plaza with a sound like the earth ripping its coat. Chips skittered on marble. Gasps broke into shouts. Umbrellas flew backward. The rope line jolted, one post wobbling on its base. Reeve halted mid-turn, left heel hovering. He could see the tomb plane impatient before him through a veil of rain. Brooks finally raised the radio. His face did not move, but his voice did. "Say again." Static snarled, then, "Suspend post. Repeat. Suspend post." The wind shoved at the mat shoved back by existing. Cooper's cufflink caught a jag of light. His mouth opened, a protest or a plea. The crowd leaned as one organism toward the exit and toward the spectacle, torn in two. Vance looked from the radio to Reeve, jaw tight enough to ache. Trent's free hand closed around the nearest rope post, steadying it, steadying them. Brooks gave a single nod. It was not toward the shelter, it was toward the line. Reeve shifted his weight, heel-kissing stone. The rifle rose to his shoulder with a motion that had muscle memory deeper than fear. A breath. Another lightning flare stunned the plaza white, and in that instant of blown-out light, a metal sign wrenched free in the gust and cartwheeled straight toward the tomb. The crowd screamed, sound shredded by thunder. And Reeve stepped. "Hold your post!" Brooks's voice ripped through the wind. Reeve's boots slapped marble as he lunged, intercepting the flying sign before it struck the tomb's face. The metal twisted in his hands with a shriek, sparks of pain cutting his palms, but the marble stayed untouched. He let the sign drop with a hollow clang that echoed through the rain. The crowd gasped. Someone shouted, "He's insane!" Another, "He saved it!" But Reeve didn't move. He turned back toward the mat, drenched, rifle slick in his grip. The sky broke open. Rain came harder, a solid sheet now. The scent of wet earth mixed with cordite ghosts, like the air after a battlefield volley. Vance's notebook was soaked through, the names smearing across the page. Brooks's jaw clenched. His radio crackled again, voice distorted by static. "Immediate suspension. All personnel clear the plaza. Lightning proximity detected, 100 meters. Brooks pressed the handset once. Negative. The tomb remains guarded. Trent swore softly through peppermint breath, rain streaming down his collar. "They're going to call command on that." "They can call God if they want," Brooks replied, eyes still forward. "We don't abandon the unknown." Reeve stood again at his mark. The crowd had mostly fled. Umbrellas turned to wreckage, plastic cracking under wind. Only a handful remained beneath the portico, watching. Cooper was one of them, soaked and stubborn, arms crossed. "Tell me," Cooper shouted over the thunder, "what does standing in the rain prove?" Reeve said nothing. His face was carved stillness. Water dripped from his chin. The rifle gleamed when lightning found it. Inside the command post near the amphitheater, a junior officer stared at the monitor feed, shaking with static. "They're still out there, sir. Guard and relief both." "Who authorized that?" Another barked. "Brooks." A silence heavier than thunder followed. Then, "Let him. If that marble stays standing through this, it'll be because of them." Back on the plaza, the wind grew teeth. Flags whipped sideways. The tomb's corners blurred in the torrent. Reeve adjusted one step back from the rope line, boots steady in puddles that reflected the eternal flame flickering like it might go out. Vance moved to Brooks's side, shouting to be heard. "Sir, I know the code, but if someone gets struck—" Brooks didn't look away from the guard. "He took an oath, Captain. So did I. So did you." She swallowed. "And if command orders you again? Then they'll order me from Section 60. For a long second, the storm seemed to pause, like the air itself listened. Thunder broke it apart. A radio on Trent's shoulder squawked. "Command requests confirmation of tomb integrity. Visual." Trent spat peppermint onto marble. "Visuals, one man still standing, over." Reeve pivoted. 21 steps. Pause. Turn. Every motion crisp, soaked to the bone. His trousers clung like lead. His gloves squeaked faintly. The tomb gleamed under the lightning flash. Each letter of "known but to God" illuminated and gone again. Brooks stepped off the higher stair and into the rain, his beret plastered flat, water trailing his temples. The crowd under the portico watched him join Reeve on the mat, shoulder to shoulder. The thunder rolled like gunfire through the valley of the dead. Vance covered her mouth. "He's going to stand with him," Trent murmured. "That's the commander's right. You don't send a man alone to defy heaven." Lightning forked again, close enough to sting skin. Brooks barked, "Trent, secure the rope line. No one crosses till I say." Trent obeyed, knotting the line posts tighter even as the velvet tore at the seams. The smell of ozone thickened. Reeve's thumb tapped the sling clip. Once, twice, then stopped. A small ritual, defiant even against thunder. The wind shoved them both backward a half-inch, then quit. Silence stretched like breath before a salute. Brooks turned his head slightly, rain crawling across his cheekbone. "You all right, Sentinel?" Reeve nodded once. "Sir, always." Brooks gave a faint smile that wasn't warmth but pride. "Then the unknown is not alone." From the portico, Cooper shouted again, frustration breaking through fear. "You think they care about this? They're gone?" Vance finally spun toward him, her soaked uniform plastered to her frame. "That's the point, sir. They can't care, so we must." Her words cracked through the rain sharper than thunder. Cooper fell silent. Reeve's heel found the line once more. 21. Stop. Turn. The rifle rose to shoulder, water trailing from its muzzle. The sound of his steps was the only rhythm left in the storm. A child's small voice, trembling near the portico, whispered, "Mom, why doesn't he go inside?" The mother answered softly, "Because someone else can't." Lightning burst again, white fire reflecting off the marble. The flag's poles shook, clips rattling like sabers. Brooks looked skyward briefly, whispering something too quiet to catch. Then, silence. A rolling lull. The storm hovered over them, breath held. The radio hissed again. "Repeat, immediate suspension. All posts are to clear. Confirm, Brooks." He pressed the mic, voice a low thunder of its own. "Not till it passes. The guard stands." Static answered. Then silence. The legendary image came in that moment. Brooks and Reeve, two dark silhouettes on a marble stage, rifles glinting, storm curling around them like ghosts of every soldier gone before. Rain pooled at their boots. The flag bent almost parallel to the ground, but did not fall. Cooper stood transfixed, his arrogance washed into awe. "They're still there," he murmured. "Still." A fresh burst of lightning tore the clouds apart. The thunder followed instantly, too close, too loud. The world turned white, and in that second, the crowd ducked instinctively. When they looked back, Brooks and Reeve were gone from the mat. Gasps rippled, the rope posts rattled. Vance shouted, "Brooks! Reeve!" Through the sheeting rain, a figure appeared kneeling beside the tomb's southern face, arm raised. Reeve. Smoke drifted from the ground near his shoulder. Brooks knelt beside him, checking pulse, his beret gone, his expression unreadable in the downpour. And behind them, etched by lightning against the storm, the tomb still stood untouched, white and whole. The thunder receded eastward, leaving the plaza trembling under rain. The cameras kept rolling, their lenses fogging over. Vance ran forward, shouting for Trent to call for medics. Brooks looked up once, straight through the rain toward the flag above the hill, and said quietly, "Orders above fear." The shot held there, two soldiers kneeling beside eternal marble, storm bowing out beyond them. Then the radio crackled once more. "All posts, confirm casualty report." And Brooks froze. "Report, Brooks's voice was a rasp, barely audible over the storm's retreat. Reeve coughed once, rainwater and smoke spilling from his mouth. "No casualty, sir. Just felt the air split." His sleeve was scorched, a faint black arc marking where the lightning had kissed the marble inches from his arm. Brooks exhaled once, slow, steady. "Then the tomb's luck holds." Vance knelt beside them, eyes scanning the uniform for burns. "He should be in the medic tent, sir." Brooks shook his head. "He's still breathing, still standing. That's the medic I need." Reeve pushed to his feet, knees stiff. "Permission to resume post." Brooks met his eyes, searching, silent, and nodded. The storm had begun to scatter itself into mist, a low gray hanging over the slope. The scent of wet marble and scorched air mixed with the faint sweetness of cut grass. The plaza gleamed like glass, each step reflecting the tomb's white purity back upon itself. From beneath the portico, only a handful of soaked visitors remained, among them Hal Cooper. His fine suit clung like gilt, cufflink dulled now. He stepped out from shelter, approaching the rope line as if pulled by something older than sense. Vance noticed first. "Sir, please stay back." But Cooper didn't stop. His voice, when it came, was edged with disbelief. "You're still out here, after that?" Reeve didn't respond. His face was calm, colorless, his thumb tapping once against the sling clip before falling still. 21 steps. Halt. Turn. Brooks remained motionless behind him, gaze cutting through the mist. Cooper crossed the rope line. Trent stepped from the side, voice low but sharp. "Sir, you're crossing into sacred ground. Back away." But Cooper didn't. "Sacred?" he barked, though the word trembled. "You call this sacred, standing in storms, risking lives for—" Reeve pivoted at the sound, rifle motionless at port arms. The wind caught his brim, throwing a line of water down his temple. Brooks's tone was calm steel. "You're in the presence of the unknown. Show respect." Cooper's eyes flicked to the tomb, then back to Brooks. "Respect for what? For silence? For ghosts you don't even know?" The words hung there, obscene against the hush that followed. Even the rain hesitated. Reeve's voice came low and steady, the kind that carried farther than shouting. "Sir, permission to speak." Brooks nodded once. Reeve turned his head slightly toward Cooper, not breaking bearing. "Sir, the unknown stood in storms worse than this. They froze. They bled. They fell nameless so I could stand here named. That's what I guard." Cooper's mouth opened, then closed. The mist swallowed the sound. "Statues don't bleed," Reeve added, his voice cutting through the air. "Soldiers do. That's why the marble matters." Vance watched through tears she hadn't realized were there. The camera lenses from the few remaining media staff clicked faintly, flashes dim through the fog. Cooper swallowed, his arrogance fracturing under the weight of that silence. He took one step back, eyes lowered. Brooks turned slightly to Reeve. "Resume your post." "Yes, sir." 21 steps. The tap of each boot echoed through the plaza, measured like a metronome for the fallen. Brooks joined him again, both men upright beneath the dripping flag. Cooper lingered at the rope line, staring at the tomb. "All these years," he said quietly, "I thought it was just ceremony." Vance stepped beside him, notebook pressed to her chest. "Ceremony is how we remember what can't speak anymore." He nodded. Slowly, eyes fixed on the two figures still standing guard. "I think I get it now." The thunder had drifted to the horizon, faint and dying. Raindrops slid lazily off the flag. A thin slice of sunlight broke through the clouds, touching the marble with a silver sheen. Brooks adjusted his stance, glancing toward the faint light. "The sky's saluting," Trent muttered under his breath. Brooks didn't disagree, but the radio flared again, interrupting the fragile calm. "All personnel, be advised. Command requests explanation for failure to suspend post. Report to HQ immediately." Vance turned to Brooks, nervous. "Sir, that's a direct summons." Brooks didn't flinch. "They'll have their report." Reeve paused mid-step, listening, waiting for what that meant. Brooks gave a small, deliberate nod toward him. "Maintain until relieved." Reeve's voice was steady. "Roger that." As Brooks and Vance stepped off the marble, the crowd parted for them. The few remaining visitors began to applaud, Not a cheer, but a slow, reverent rhythm that filled the air like the last heartbeat of the storm. Cooper watched them go, water dripping from his cuff. "They'll court-martial him for that," he muttered. Vance didn't answer. She just looked toward the tomb where Reeve still walked the mat, alone now, against the soft light. The applause faded. Only footsteps remained. From the amphitheater steps, Brooks glanced back once. The guard's silhouette was framed by the tomb, the flag, and the lifting mist, a single figure between heaven and history. "Sometimes," he murmured to Vance, "defiance is the purest form of duty." She met his eyes. "And command won't see it that way." He half smiled. "Command never stands in the rain." Down on the plaza, Cooper lingered. His cufflink caught one last glint of light. He reached into his pocket and drew a crushed poppy from his lapel, a decoration from a veteran's memorial dinner, and placed it carefully at the base of the rope line. "I was wrong," he whispered. Reeve didn't move, but when he pivoted for his next pass, his gaze flickered for half a second toward the flower. The moment held, suspended in marble silence. Then, faint thunder again, far off, returning. Vance froze mid-step. "Another cell forming westward," she said quietly, checking the horizon. Brooks's face hardened. "Then it's not over." The camera crews lifted their lenses again. The wind began to stir. Reeve's uniform rippled as he turned, lightning far away, then closer. The tomb glowed faint in the coming dark, and the radio on Brooks's shoulder came alive with a clipped, urgent tone. "All commands, new storm inbound. All personnel clear immediately. This is not a request." Brooks stared at the sky, then down at Reeve still marching. He didn't move. "Let them send the storm," he said quietly. "The guard will answer." The sky flashed white once more. "Contact command!" Vance shouted, the radio screeching with static as thunder cracked again overhead. Brooks didn't look away from the plaza below. Rain had returned in sheets, harsher, driven sideways by the wind that tore through the flagstaffs. "They'll know where I stand," he said. Reeve marched still, alone, his silhouette a shifting shadow through the rain, each step a defiance, each turn a promise. The second storm wasn't just weather now, it was challenge. The flagpole groaned under the wind. The eternal flame bent low, almost snuffed out. Trent sprinted down the marble steps toward the plaza, uniform plastered to his frame, shouting through the gale. "Commander, Matt's flooding. That's live lightning again. You gotta call him in." Brooks met him halfway. "And who guards the tomb then?" "Sir, you'll both fry out there." Brooks's boots hit the plaza floor with a sound like punctuation. "Then I'll fry beside him." Trent froze. He'd seen that look before, on men who had already made peace with consequence. The rain blurred everything, rows of headstones dissolving into ghostly lines. Vance's soaked notebook slapped against her thigh as she descended after them. "This isn't bravery anymore, it's obedience," Brooks cut in, "to something higher than orders." Reeve turned as they reached him. His face was unreadable, water streaking from his chin like tears that weren't his. The rifle gleamed dully, a silver echo of the lightning that tore through the horizon. "Sir," Reeve said, voice steady but strained, "I can maintain post alone." Brooks shook his head. "Not while I breathe." The storm howled, flinging debris across the marble, the scent of wet stone mixed with ozone and iron. Vance shielded her eyes, shouting, "You'll be relieved by nature if you keep this up." Brooks ignored her. He took his place beside Reeve, shoulder to shoulder. "Sentinel," he said softly, "recite the creed." Reeve blinked rain out of his eyes and began, voice trembling but clear. "My dedication to this sacred duty is total and wholehearted, in keeping with the dignity and honor of the unknown soldiers, whose memory—" A deafening crack cut him off. A flagpole cable snapped, whipping past with a metallic scream. The flag dropped to half its height before catching on a knot of twisted line. Trent lunged for it instinctively. Brooks shouted, "Secure that flag!" Trent climbed the steps, boots sliding, hands gripping slick rope. Lightning flashed, his silhouette black against blinding white. The wind fought him, but he locked the rope around his forearm and heaved. The flag rose again, rippling wildly against the storm. Reeve's rifle never wavered. His voice picked up the creed again, louder now. "Whose memory shall never die. I walk my tour in humble reverence." Brooks joined him in the final line, both voices merging against the roar through the years of diligence and praise. I am humbled and proud to honor them. So help me God. The words vanished into thunder. Vance looked on from the edge of the plaza, drenched, trembling, not from cold but from awe. She pressed her palm over her notebook as if holding the moment in place. Trent stumbled down from the flagstaff, coughing, hair plastered to his forehead. "Flag secure," he gasped. "Wind still climbing." Brooks turned toward him. "Then brace it with your life." Trent gave a crooked smile. "Copy that, sir." The power surged and died. Floodlights flickered, then cut to black. For a heartbeat, Arlington vanished, nothing but darkness and rain and the faint glow of the eternal flame. That was when the sound came. A low, drawn-out groan, metal bending. One of the outer scaffolds from the amphitheater construction site had come loose, tumbling end over end toward the plaza. "Down!" Vance shouted. The structure slammed into the far side of the plaza with a crash that shook the marble. Sparks burst from a sheared light post. Smoke curled through the rain. Reeves stood unmoved, eyes fixed forward. Brooks pivoted toward the noise but didn't flinch. "Sir," Vance cried out, "we have to clear the area." Brooks's reply came calm and cold. "The tomb does not clear the area. The guard does not retreat. That is the oath." She stared at him, rain dripping from her lashes. Even now. Especially now. The rain's violence began to slow, trading fury for weight, heavy drops, thick mist. The lightning crawled eastward. In the dying stormlight, the three figures, Brooks, Reeve, Trent, stood like monuments themselves, each breath a quiet rebellion against fear. The smell of scorched metal lingered, mingled with rain. Their boots sank slightly into puddles where the mat had been overtaken by water, the reflection of the tomb gleaming beneath their feet like a ghost. Vance raised her camera, hands shaking, and took a single photo. The flash illuminated the scene, three guards standing motionless, rifles gleaming, the flag alive above them, the eternal flame burning between. It would become the image that defined the night, the oath in the flood. Then, the radio cracked one last time. "Command to Brooks, emergency units en route. You will stand down. Repeat, stand down immediately or face formal charge." Brooks lifted the mic, thumb hovering over the transmit button. For a long moment, nothing moved but the rain. Then he pressed it. "This is Staff Sergeant Brooks. The unknown stood in storms without charge. The guard remains." He clipped the radio back to his vest and looked toward the tomb. "Maintain," Reeve nodded. "Sir, yes, sir." The last rumble of thunder rolled away toward the river. The mist rose higher, wrapping the plaza in quiet. The marble gleamed silver. Trent's breathing slowed. "Feels like it's bowing out, sir." Brooks nodded faintly. "The storm pays respect." They stood until dawn's first gray slit the clouds. No words, no movement, but the slow drip of rain from the flag. Vance finally whispered from the edge, voice breaking, "You could have died out there." Brooks didn't look back. "We weren't out there," he said. "We were where we belong." And as the camera panned wide, the tomb glowing under the newborn light, the three figures motionless before it, the final shot held, duty outlasting the storm, silence victorious over thunder. Then, faintly from the radio, "Command copies." But no one moved. The storm had bowed. Dawn broke like a held breath finally released. The marble steamed under the first rays of sun, mist curling around the tomb like incense. The storm was gone, but its echo remained in every puddle, every bent flagpole, every soaked uniform. SSG Elijah Brooks stood where he had been all night, unmoving, eyes forward. Beside him, SPC Daniel Reeve held his rifle steady, body trembling with exhaustion, but posture unbroken. Behind them, SGT Trent sat on the steps, bandaging a rope burn around his forearm. CPT Mara Vance stood off to the side, camera lowered, her soaked notebook clutched to her chest. The plaza smelled of rain and marble dust. The air was sharp, holy. A maintenance crew began to arrive in the distance, pushing carts through puddles. The workers stopped when they saw the guards still there. None spoke. One of them, a young airman, maybe 20, snapped to attention instinctively. Brooks gave no signal, no glance, but the silence commanded it. Reeves' eyes flickered toward the horizon. The sun was rising behind Section 60, light cutting through the mist in golden beams that illuminated the headstones one by one, as if the fallen were being counted anew. The guard turned his head just slightly toward Brooks. "Sir, the storm's passed," Brooks answered without moving. "Storms always pass. The guard does not." The first civilians reappeared. Families, joggers, tourists clutching phones and coffee cups. They walked slower than usual, something about the soaked marble making them cautious, reverent. Word had already spread. The tomb guards had refused to stand down through the night's lightning. Among them was Hal Cooper. His tailored jacket was gone. He wore a simple windbreaker now, its sleeves rolled to the elbows. He approached the rope line quietly. No cameras, no swagger. Vance noticed him and started to step forward, but Brooks lifted a hand. "Let him." Cooper reached the rope, paused, and removed his cap. His hair was still damp, his expression humble. In his hand, he held a single white rose. He cleared his throat softly. "Permission to approach, Sergeant." The request hung there like a prayer. Brooks gave a slow nod. "Granted." The crowd fell utterly silent. Even the wind stopped. Cooper crossed the rope one careful step at a time until he stood before the tomb. He looked down at the inscription, lips trembling as he read it under his breath. "Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God." Then he knelt. The marble was still cold and wet, soaking through his trousers. He laid the rose on the stone, stem trembling from his hand. When he spoke, his voice was barely more than breath. "For the ones we never thanked." He stayed there a long moment before rising and stepping back to the rope line. Brooks finally turned his head slightly toward Reeve. "Relief, Sentinel." Reeve pivoted crisply, water still dripping from his coat's edge. "Sir, request permission to remain 5 minutes longer." Brooks studied him, then nodded once. "Granted." Reeve resumed his steps. 21, measured, deliberate, infinite. The rhythmic echo of his boots filled the morning. Vance opened her notebook, the paper still warped from rain. On the last page, she wrote a single word. "The storm." She looked up at the three soldiers, the tomb gleaming behind them, the flag lifting again with new wind. Then she whispered, "History won't believe this." Trent grinned faintly from the steps. "Then it'll make a better story." Brooks said nothing. His gaze was on the tomb, the light, the man still marching. Minutes passed, the plaza filled with quiet reverence. A small boy near the rope whispered, "Mom, is he tired?" His mother crouched, smiling softly. "Yes, but he won't stop until someone else takes his place." When the relief detail finally arrived, fresh uniforms, pressed and dry, Reeve halted mid-step. He faced the new sentinel with solemn precision. The ceremony began, words sharp in the clean morning air. "Post and orders remain as directed." The reply came firm. Orders acknowledged. Rifles exchanged, boots struck, silence reclaimed. Brooks exhaled, the first full breath he'd allowed himself since the storm began. He looked to Reeve. "You did well, soldier." Reeve shook his head. "It wasn't me, sir. It was them." He glanced at the tomb. "The ones under the stone." Brooks turned toward the gathered crowd, his uniform soaked, his beret dark with water, his bearing still flawless. "What you saw here," he said quietly, "wasn't defiance. It was devotion. These men stood their ground because they serve those who no longer can. That's not courage, that's duty." His words rippled through the silence like the echo of a rifle salute. Cooper nodded once, eyes wet. "Duty," he murmured. "Now I understand." As the sun climbed, the mist burned away. The marble shone bright enough to sting the eyes. Brooks straightened his cover, turning to Reeve and Trent. "We'll file our report." Trent smirked. "Think command will like it?" Brooks gave a faint grin. "Command doesn't have to. The unknown's already heard it." He stepped down from the plaza, boots clicking on wet stone, each sound precise as a heartbeat. Behind him, the relief guard resumed his march. The rifle gleamed under the Ibawazu. New light. The flag above rippled against a sky scrubbed clean by storm. Vance took one final photograph, sunlight slicing through the mist, the tomb bright and eternal, three figures framed before it. That image would go viral within hours, called "The Morning After the Storm." But no caption would ever capture what it felt like to stand there, to hear silence ring louder than thunder. As the camera faded to white, Brooks's voice lingered in the narration. Some say the storm tested us. They're wrong. The storm saluted. And when it passed, the tomb still stood, as it always will, guarded, honored, remembered. Pause. Subscribe and remember with us, because their watch never ends.